Hi, my name is Mallory Jump, and my favorite brain part is the hippocampus. I believe that it is one of the most important and influential brain parts because of its role in memory storage. Memory makes a big impression on our personality and growth, so in turn the hippocampus plays a big part in who we ultimately become. It also has an interesting response to trauma that I will go into more depth on later. The hippocampus is an interesting structure. It is a seahorse-shaped structure that curves around the hypothalamus and the cerebral hemispheres from close to the midline out to the tip of the temporal lobe. It can be found close to the amygdala and the limbic system. The limbic system as a whole is the brain center for learning processes as well as emotional and motivational behaviors, which the hippocampus fits right into. One would infer by the hippocampal placement in the limbic system that it is involved in learning and memory, specifically processes influenced by emotions, and that would be correct. The hippocampus has two main functions. One is the formation of declarative memories. Information is first processed by the sensory regions of the brain, then is sent to the hippocampal formation to be processed from short-term to working memory. Declarative memories are then sent back into the cerebral cortex and transferred into long-term memory. The hippocampus is then reactivated in retrieval. The hippocampus is closely tied to the amygdala and also participates in the stress response. When the body experiences intense stress, the amygdala activates the HPA axis to trigger the release of the stress hormone cortisol into the bloodstream. The hippocampus balances the amygdala by acting to inhibit the activation of the HPA axis. When the cortisol levels get too high, the hippocampus will cause the hypothalamus to stop producing the hormones that promote cortisol production. The hippocampus is part of a bigger structure in the limbic system called the hippocampal formation, which is generally considered to include the parahippocampal gyrus and the hippocampus. It also includes a strip of gray matter between the two known as the dentate gyrus. The parahippocampal gyrus includes the entorhinal cortex and the subiculum, both of which help with the flow of information and memory formation. The hippocampus is divided into 4 areas of cell bodies designated CA1 through CA4. Sensory information first goes through the entorhinal cortex, then is passed to the dentate gyrus. After that, it is passed to the area CA3 in the hippocampus, then to the CA1 region, which projects information to neurons in the subiculum. From there, the neurons project information back to the entorhinal cortex, which sends that information back to the cerebrum. This is the path that normal memory consolidation follows. Both the hippocampus and the amygdala are re-engaged when the memory is recalled. This memory consolidation is negatively impacted by traumatic experiences, especially repeated trauma such as child abuse or human trafficking. The hippocampus shuts down its memory consolidation function during trauma, which is a flight or fight response to the stressor. By not making long-term memories of the event, the body is attempting to shield the individual from the stress of the trauma. However, this can later be harmful because it can cause confusion and disorientation, especially with the existence of triggers from the event. Repeated trauma can lead to the degeneration of the hippocampus and the dysregulation of the amygdala's stress response as they are under constant stress. Individuals with PTSD often experience symptoms such as concentration problems and anterograde amnesia. Both are also signs that the hippocampus has begun to degenerate. This can intensify triggers of the trauma and make moving past the trauma extremely difficult for the individual. Fortunately, the human brain is very elastic, so while the cells that have died cannot be resuscitated, new neural networks can be formed. Individuals with PTSD are often referred to cognitive behavioral therapy, which works to simulate any lingering sensory memories of the trauma associated with the amygdala and the hippocampus. Once those sensory points can be identified, most patients start to remember more and more of the event. The reason why I think the hippocampus is so intriguing is because it has the ability to protect us from severe trauma, and even though its methods of doing so have drawbacks, the hippocampus can bounce back to help with healing. It is incredibly exciting to watch as new research is done involving the hippocampus in recovery, and personally, this is the type of research I would be interested in working on sometime in the future. Hopefully science can come to better understand exactly how the hippocampus works and use it to speed recovery in patients with PTSD.